Based on available information and current news trends as of June 25, 2025, the following are the top 5 news stories in the United States, summarized from 3 perspectives: right-wing, conservative, moderate, neutral, and left-wing liberal. Each summary reflects the biases and framing typical of the specified media outlets. While critically examining the narratives and avoiding unsupported claims, the stories are drawn from recent reports, prioritizing those with significant coverage across the ideological spectrum. 1. U.S. military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Right-wing conservative perspective: President Trump's decisive airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities are a bold move to protect American interests and support Israel's security. The strikes, part of Operation Midnight Hammer, demonstrate strong leadership and a commitment to preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Conservative outlets emphasize Trump's strategic resolve, Fox News panelists calling it a defining moment in his presidency. Critics of the strikes, particularly from the left, are portrayed as weak on national security. While some right-wing holdouts express concern over escalation, but are largely drowned out by praise for Trump's proactive stance. Breitbart highlights the failure of liberal media like Reuters to acknowledge Trump's success in setting back Iran's nuclear ambitions. Moderate neutral perspective: the U.S. military conducted strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities on June 22, 2025, in coordination with Israel, aiming to disrupt Iran's nuclear program. A Defense Department intelligence report suggests the strike set Iran's program back by months, but did not destroy the facilities. Contrary to President Trump's claims, the operation followed intense deliberation, with Trump initially hesitant due to non-interventionist pressures, but swayed by Israel's actions and domestic political dynamics. Neutral outlets like CBS News note the strategic implications and ongoing debates about escalation risks, presenting a balanced view of military and diplomatic consequences without taking a clear ideological stance. Left-wing liberal perspective: the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities are a reckless escalation, risking broader conflict in the Middle East. Liberal outlets like the New York Times detail how Trump, initially cautious due to non-interventionist voices like Tucker Carlson, was swayed by pro-Israel hawks and political pressures, including Fox News coverage. NPR emphasizes the potential for diplomatic fallout and civilian harm, questioning the strike's effectiveness, given reports that Iran's facilities were not obliterated. Critics argue the move undermines global stability and diverts attention from domestic issues, with MSNBC framing it as a dangerous gamble driven by Trump's need to project strength. 2. Immigration and deportation policies under Trump. Right-wing, conservative perspective: President Trump's aggressive immigration policies, including mass deportation efforts and ICE raids, are a necessary response to secure America's borders and prioritize citizens' economic interests. Breitbart portrays these actions as fulfilling campaign promises, with Energy Secretary Chris Wright's Big Beautiful Bill tied to broader economic reforms. Conservative media dismisses liberal critiques as fear-mongering, with the Washington Times arguing that deportations protect American jobs and safety. The detention of Salvadoran journalist Mario Guevara is framed as a lawful consequence of illegal immigration, not a free speech issue. Moderate neutral perspective: the Trump administration has intensified ICE raids and deportation efforts, exemplified by the detention of Salvadoran journalist Mario Guevara during a protest in Atlanta. On June 14, 2025, neutral outlets like NPR report on the human impact, noting Guevara's role as a journalist and the broader context of immigration enforcement. The Associated Press highlights the policy's roots in Trump's campaign pledges and the retirement of Fair Dan Stein, signaling shifts in immigration advocacy. Coverage focuses on factual developments, including public protests and legal challenges, without strong editorializing. Left-wing liberal perspective: Trump's deportation policies are a cruel overreach, targeting vulnerable communities and stifling dissent. MSNBC links the policies to Great Replacement theory, citing Princeton professor Eddie Glaude Jr., who argues they demonize immigrants for political gain. The Washington Post critiques claims that migration boosts economies, emphasizing the human cost and declining living standards for citizens. Guevara's detention is framed as an attack on press freedom, with NPR and CNN highlighting the chilling effect on journalists covering immigration issues. 3. Abortion trends 3 years after Roe v. Wade overturned right-wing conservative perspective. 3 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, conservative media celebrate the decision as a victory for states' rights and pro-life values. Fox News reports that despite liberal claims, abortion numbers have not plummeted, suggesting state bans are insufficiently enforced. The Daily Wire criticizes left-leaning outlets for downplaying the moral implications of increased abortions. Framing the issue as a cultural battle against progressive overreach, they argue that stronger state-level restrictions are needed to align with conservative principles. Moderate neutral perspective CBS News reports that 3 years after Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, abortion numbers have unexpectedly increased, despite state-level bans. Julie Ravner of KFF Health News notes that access through telemedicine and interstate travel has contributed to this trend. Neutral outlets focus on data, such as the role of medication abortions, and avoid ideological framing. USA Today provides context on state policies and public opinion, presenting a balanced view of the evolving legal and social landscape without advocating for either side. Left-wing liberal perspective, the rise in abortions, post-Roe v. Wade, reflects resilience in the face of restrictive state laws. With liberal outlets like NPR highlighting how women are accessing care through innovative means like telehealth, The Washington Post frames the increase as a rebuke to conservative efforts to limit reproductive rights, emphasizing the disproportionate impact on marginalized groups. CNN and MSNBC criticize state bans as infringing on personal freedoms, with activists calling for federal protections to counter the patchwork of restrictions. 4. Trump's push for NATO military spending. Right-wing conservative perspective President Trump's pressure on NATO allies to increase military spending is a pragmatic move to ensure fair burden sharing and strengthen the alliance against global threats. Newsmax praises Trump's tough stance, particularly against Spain's reluctance. As a way to bolster U.S. leadership, Breitbart frames resistance from European allies as ungrateful, accusing liberal media of undermining Trump's efforts to prioritize American interests. The narrative emphasizes fiscal responsibility and military readiness. Moderate neutral perspective at the NATO summit. President Trump urged allies to increase military spending, meeting resistance from countries like Spain, which cited budget constraints. The Wall Street Journal reports on the diplomatic tensions, noting Trump's push aligns with long-standing U.S. goals but faces practical challenges. Reuters provides a straightforward account of the summit's dynamics, focusing on negotiations and the broader context of NATO's strategic priorities without leaning heavily into ideological framing. Left-wing liberal perspective. Trump's aggressive push for NATO allies to boost military spending is seen as divisive, straining alliances and prioritizing militarization over diplomacy. The New York Times highlights Spain's refusal as a sign of broader European skepticism about Trump's leadership style. CNN critiques the approach as coercive, arguing it distracts from pressing global issues like climate change. Liberal outlets warn that Trump's tactics could weaken NATO's unity at a critical time. 5. AI developments and workforce impacts. Right-wing conservative perspective conservative outlets view AI advancements, like Amazon's job cuts announced by CEO Andy Jassy, as a natural evolution of market-driven innovation. Fox News frames AI as a tool for efficiency, criticizing liberal alarmists who overstate job loss fears. The Washington Times emphasizes the need for deregulation to unleash AI's potential, arguing that government overreach, often pushed by the left, stifles technological progress. Concerns about AI's sociopathic tendencies are dismissed as exaggerated. Moderate neutral perspective Amazon CEO Andy Jassy's announcement of a driven job cuts reflects broader trends in workforce automation. CBS News reports on the dual impact: efficiency gains versus job displacement, with tech journalist Jacob Ward noting AI's transformative potential. Reuters covers Yoshua Bengio's warnings about AI's risks, including its sociopathic tendencies, presenting a balanced view of technological benefits and ethical concerns. Neutral outlets focus on data and expert opinions without strong ideological takes. Left-wing liberal perspective, the rise of AI, exemplified by Amazon's job cuts, raises urgent concerns about worker displacement and ethical risks. NPR highlights Yoshua Bengio's warnings about AI's potential to mimic human behavior in harmful ways, urging robust regulation. The Washington Post frames corporate AI adoption as prioritizing profits over people, with MSNBC calling for policies to protect workers. Liberal outlets emphasize the need for oversight to prevent unchecked AI development from exacerbating inequality.